Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
I'm Bob Scarborough.
And we are the FAIRtax Guys. Well, you got your banner right side up this week. Congratulations.
I did that to see if anybody was looking last week, paying attention.
Oh, yeah. Well, speaking of last week, we had a special guest with us. Jade Wally was on, and he brought us a really interesting thing. If you did not catch last week's edition of FAIRtax Power Radio, you need to go back into the archive, either on Rumble or on our YouTube channel, and check this out. But there, in spite of the fact that the polling industry in general has not been too accurate here recently, but Jade found one particular organization who had done a poll on people's opinion of their taxation system. How many of you would like to see the income tax, replaced with a national sales tax? A surprisingly amount of support for that. So check that out. It's on the FAIRtax Power Radio archives, either again on Rumble or in the FAIRtax Guys YouTube channel. And we'll check that out. It's good to see Jade again, wasn't it?
Sure was. Had a nice living room set there. He not unlike my background, which is my workbench, and
Yes.
that you're sitting in front of.
This is my Alaska glacier picture. I've taken that one. I've used this one before, and we're actually, excuse me, we're trying to get ahead a little bit. We record these episodes ahead of time because I'll be going back to Alaska here at the end of July, and so I've got last week I had the Alaska Hurricane Gulch background. This is the Alaska glacier. And so we're recording this a couple of weeks before it's going to stream. We're getting ahead, and I am ready to go to Alaska, and you want to go one of these days.
That'll be fun. Oh, Bob's getting ready to do the Boy Scout start a fire motion.
Oh, well, I don't really want to set my hands on fire, but I do want to shine the light of truth on what the Congress critters are up to. We did not get to do this last week because every time we have a special guest, we forego the Congress.gov segment. But this, as I have mentioned several times, is my favorite segment of all of the things we do on FAIRtax Power Radio, simply because there is so much going up in there in Congress regarding the tax code that people don't pay attention to. The media doesn't pay attention to it. People have no idea that this stuff is going on. And sometimes it is just plain humorous as to some of the things that the Congress critters are trying to do to the tax code. So again, what we do, we go to Congress.gov, we put the words Internal Revenue Code in quotes in the search bar at the top, select just legislation in the current Congress and hit the go button. As of the day we're recording this, which is a couple of weeks before it's going to stream, we're actually recording this on June 17th, the 884 hits that search brings back. There's probably considerably more if you do it right now, but we're going to get into some pretty cool stuff here, and we will start with, this was from the Senate side, S 2023 from Senator Peter Welch of Vermont, to amend the Internal Revenue Code to modify employer-provided fringe benefits for bicycle commuting. And we talk a lot about stuff. There is just so much stuff in the tax code that is narrowly focused to just a few folks. And now this is what Senator Welch wants to change the employer-provided fringe benefits for bicycle commuting. But the thing that really jumped out on me of that one, why is the tax code messing with stuff that it's the employer's responsibility to do? I mean, see if the employer wants to do that, they could or they don't. Why is the government involving themselves in what employers can and can't do as far as fringe benefits for folks that commute on bicycles? That's crazy.
Just nuts. I mean, didn't we talk about, wasn't that something a couple of weeks ago that there was somebody talking about bicycle commuting on bicycles?
I think there was something about electric bicycles a couple of weeks ago. Well, I have to go. You're taxing an old man's memory here, but that's just crazy that the tax code would try to get into something that is clearly the domain of a private employer. I mean, does the government have a right to mandate what benefits an employer has to provide. I guess there are some people that think that is the case. There are a bunch of others, and I'm included in this group, that think it's not. But the free market should take care of that. The government should keep its fat nose out of it. But to amend the Internal Revenue Code to modify employer-provided fringe benefits for bicycle commuting, you just have to shake your head and laugh at something like that.
Well, Senator Welch is from Vermont.
Yes.
That there are a number of benefits, I think, to commute on a bicycle in Vermont, but it also might be a state where, somebody's making bicycles too.
I don't know. Let's go on. This is S 2021. This is from Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon, a bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code to see if you can figure out what he's talking about. I'm not sure I can. To exclude round-trip income for purposes of calculating global intangible low-tax income and for other purposes. Now, if you can tell me what he's saying there, I would be most appreciative.
Let's ask artificial intelligence. I'll get back because I'm sure.
Oh, mercy.
I'll come up with a little meme of some guy scratching his head like with a question mark.
I thought a round trip was when you get on an airplane and go from point A to point B and then get on another one and fly back from point B to point A. I didn't know there was such a thing as round trip income. I will have to look that up and see what that is. But he wants to exclude round trip income. That doesn't count for the purposes of calculating global intangible low taxed income. And for folks, did you know that this stuff is in the tax code? It's crazy. I mean, you can't modify something that's not there. So there apparently is something called global intangible low taxed income. Raise your hand if you knew that was in the tax code. Put my hand down. I didn't know that. But that's
round trip income. I got it. You know what round trip income? It's not like going on a trip and coming back, and you made income in the middle.
Did you look that up? What?
It refers to a financial maneuver where funds or assets are transferred between entities, often through complex transactions, and then returned to the original entity.
Sounds like money laundering to me.
Primary goal is to inflate financial figures, creating a false appearance of legitimate business activity or manipulating financial statements. So,
oh, mercy.
And calculating. Okay, well, let's go to the next one. Not that we need to spend a lot of time on this, but this could be a whole show where we drill into. All right, the next thing.
The next one is HR 3871. Senator, check that, Representative Jake Elzy of Texas. This is called the Apprenticeship Infrastructure Tax Credit Act of 2025. Now, that one doesn't have the summary on the first page. I got to go here and drill into the text. This actually does have some text with it. And when you get into here, it says HR 3871 is a bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code to allow, oh, mercy, another credit, to allow a credit to employers who hire individuals through an apprenticeship program. Again, now that sounds again like something that the free market ought to be messing with and not the tax code.
Exactly. And so the challenges for the people that are bringing all of this to Congress, what do they do when the fair tax gets enacted? And will they begin to, how will they make sure that their interests are covered once the tax code is not there to use as a vehicle for that purpose?
Okay, let's move on. This one, just the name on it caught my eye. This is HR 3844 from Representative Tony Gonzalez of Texas. And you might imagine it because the title is Texas is the New Hollywood Act of 2025. Well, I guess people are leaving California in droves because of a variety of issues that are going out there. And so Representative Gonzalez wants to have Texas is the New Hollywood Act of 2025. And this is another one I got to take a second or two to drill that into and see what it actually says. And it says this is to amend the Internal Revenue Code to extend bonus depreciation for qualified film and television productions and to require minimum in-state spending thresholds for such productions. Do we really have to have that in the tax code?
No, none
That
of
was
it.
that was a question. No, we really need to get rid of all of this stuff, as we would often say, pull it out by the roots and replace it with the fair tax. And here's one more, another one. Don't you just love these really super narrowly defined things? This is actually from the Senate side again, 1998, S 1998 from Senator Scott in South Carolina. A bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code to get this, simplify reporting requirements, promote tax compliance, and reduce tip reporting compliance burdens in the beauty services industry. Well, I'll tell you, Senator Scott, if you want to simplify reporting requirements, promote tax compliance, and reduce tip reporting compliance burdens across the board, not just for the beauty service industry, sign on to the fair tax. We need a sponsor in the Senate, sir.
Yeah, today we need to have our South Carolina we need to have our South Carolina listeners and viewers get on the horn to your senator there and ask him.
Yeah, well, you know some people there in South Carolina. You go to Myrtle Beach quite often.
There are a few people down there that could do that. I could call him, but I'm not in South Carolina.
Yeah, you're on the wrong side of the state line. He won't listen to you because. But anyway, to amend the Internal Revenue Code, simplify reporting requirements, promote tax compliance, and reduce tip reporting compliance. But I thought there was going to be no tax on tips anyway. Whatever, but all that for the beauty service industry. So they want to tip your beautician or your barber or your manicurist or whatever. Why don't restaurant servers get this thing? Who knows? They rely on tips.
Boy, no kidding.
Okay. Anyway, that's it for Congress.gov this week on fair tax. I just love to dig into here and see what kind of craziness the Congress critters are doing with the tax code. And I'm convinced that if people understood the degree to which this tax code is constantly being manipulated, or at least they're getting proposals to manipulate it, and if they knew how many lobbyists were behind all this stuff, they would be aghast that we allow such a system to exist, and they would join us in insisting that it be pulled out by the roots and replaced with the fair tax. Mercy. Okay. Let's move on. We got about 15 minutes left. And it was interesting. Seems like every week that you hear that there's going to be a new IRS commissioner. Well, we've got another new IRS commissioner. A former representative from Missouri. His name's Billy Long. And the reason that caught my eye, and this article caught my eye, is that Billy Long, when he was a congressman representing Missouri, he co-sponsored the fair tax. He wanted to get rid of the Internal Revenue Service, and now he is the chief head honcho over there now. Billy Long, who was just confirmed to head the IRS. And I guess that's good news that we have a former fair tax co-sponsor now in the head of the IRS. And of course, this article is all about what he wants to make changes. The article is from a place called FedScoop, FEDSCOOP, fedscoop.com, if you want to look that up and see it. But the article doesn't talk a great deal about the fair tax, although it does mention, hey, this guy that's heading the IRS at one time wanted to get rid of it, but now he's saying he wants to do all these kind. In fact, this was written before he was confirmed. He was confirmed not long ago, but he would tackle the tax agency's IT modernization challenges. In other words, he will get rid of, what do you say, DOS 3.0 that they run up there, and turn to
3.11 now, which allows you to actually put a networking cable into one of the cards on your computer. Two computers together.
Oh, mercy. Well, I tell you what, we've heard a lot of talk. In fact, the last administration provided a lot of money to the IRS to not only hire a bunch of new agents, but also to upgrade its computers. When you think about it, that's that's a bit scary when the government is going to get all of this sophisticated technology to be able to know as much, if they already know a whole heck of a lot, but to know even more about your personal financial situation, which in my view is none of their doggone business. The government has no business knowing how much money you make, who you make it from, how will you spend it, how much you give away to charity, how much you spend on daycare, what do you spend on medical expenses, how much mileage do you put on your car for business purposes. All of this personal information that the government collects on a tax return, and you have to fill it out or you go to jail. They, they shouldn't be getting that stuff. And the modernization of the IRS may sound like a good idea to some people, but I'm telling you that scares me to death to know that the IRS is going to have an even greater capability to know even more about me even faster. I mean, not that I'm doing anything illegal, but it's just very unsettling that Big Brother is collecting all this information on you. And we need to get rid of it. We need to get rid of the entire IRS. We don't need to modernize it. We need to get rid of it and replace it with a fair tax. Okay. I'll get off the soapbox now and let you talk.
Well, just thinking about former Congressman from Missouri, Billy Long. Um, he's looking into into the private sector to get clues of how to modernize the Internal Revenue Service. Um, did you know that he was an auctioneer? He was in the auction business before he got into Congress. Oh, that was pretty good.
But I saw that in this article. I think it would be fun to talk about the call. I could do kind of that auctioneer chant, get up there and speak before Congress in this kind of auctioneer cadence. That'd be cool. Nobody would understand what it's saying, but that would be
Right.
cool. Yeah, I need to take clues from the private sector, he says.
Yeah.
And what are they doing? And I guess that's a good idea. I mean, the government is incredibly inefficient at what it does. It doesn't care how much money it wastes because it doesn't matter whether they turn a profit or not. They're going to continue to exist anyway. But so doing some private sector things in the government sounds like a good idea, but I still think modernizing the IRS is a terrible idea when the alternative is to get rid of it.
Well, and it's kind of interesting. You'll see a pull against that reality, that potential coming real soon with the government deciding, are we going to go with consumption, or what are we doing? Knowing what we learned last week with Jade Wally, that people are very, very interested in a tax on consumption. That whole survey is just filled with lots of positive news about a great way to change. But here
Yeah.
comes
I'm still amazed that the IRS has any support whatsoever, except among the politicians and the lobbyists.
well, that may be some of the people that got the survey too. Who knows? Uh, back a few weeks ago, because we're recording this basically 5 or 6 days after Commissioner Long, former Representative Billy Long, was confirmed. He was confirmed on Thursday, June 12th, by 53 to 44. He's in a position where he understands the fair tax because he co-sponsored it, and now
Mhm.
he's the commissioner of the Internal Revenue Service, and the first thing he basically said he was going to do at one of the questions that was asked of him had to do with what is he looking at as far as things that he wants to change, other than the fact that he wanted to be held accountable for what he's about to dive into. One of the questions came from an Indiana senator during the process he went through there to get approved. If he'd commit to developing a comprehensive modernization plan that prioritizes customer service, identifies critical technology infrastructure needs, and ensures greater transparency in audit practices. And Long said he would. and that he
Well,
wanted to be held accountable for all of that.
the IRS commissioners have been saying that for decades, and none of it has happened. And the deal again, as we mentioned earlier, in the government as opposed to the private sector, there is no consequence for not meeting your goal. If you spend too much money, who cares? You're not going to go bankrupt. You're not going to go out of business. Again, nobody is ever held accountable because it just doesn't happen. And so hopefully this will work. But I'm somewhat excited by the prospect of having a FAIRtax co-sponsor, now the head of the IRS, somebody who at least at one time was in favor of getting rid of the entire agency and replacing the income tax with the fair. I wish somebody would ask him the question, do you still support, if you were still a congressman, would you still support the fair tax? I'd love to slip that question to him somehow and see what his answer would be.
I would like to. I'm going to look over the transcript of his confirmation hearing to see if that's even in there. That would be pretty funny. So, just to give credit to FedScoop, FedScoop.com, the article was written back at the end of May. Matt Bracken is the reporter on this. So, artificial intelligence wasn't mentioned.
Yeah, I'm just wondering when you're thinking modernization in the private sector, there is a lot of artificial intelligence now going in the private sector. I mean, you go I did this yesterday. I had to go to the local car dealer's website to schedule some service on the wife's car, and you get this artificial intelligence on the phone. I've gotten pretty good at being able to spot artificial intelligence on the phone. And
Yeah.
so there are artificial intelligence systems everywhere doing everything, which in a way I guess is a good thing. But people don't understand artificial intelligence is this kind of the same thing as human intelligence. It's not always 100% accurate, and I don't want the IRS coming down on me because some artificial intelligence somewhere told them something about me that wasn't true.
I would
You know
hope.
that that scares that should scare everybody.
Well, I think that wouldn't be the final bang of the gavel, to send somebody out to pick you up at your doorstep. I think what would happen in that situation, and this is just Bob Scarborough's surmising this, that a certain amount of AI can come in and fill gaps, specifically for tax collection, or maybe some other menial tasks. But I think what would happen there is there would be a ticket. A ticket would get spit out and it would say, "Hey, real person, look into this Bob Paxton guy."
Yeah.
The article quotes Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who's from Conway, South Carolina, by the way, told House lawmakers earlier this month that smarter IT through this AI boom would fill in some gaps created by staff reductions specifically for tax collection. More than 11,000 IRS positions, the article went on, had been eliminated as of March. Another 40% in staff cuts is expected. The high-ranking IRS executives told the reporter for this article that DOGE instituted workforce reductions are likely to hinder innovation at the tax agency and reverse efficiency gains. Well, those are the personal opinion. Those are the high-ranking IRS executives who are now have the word former in front of their title. The IT side of the house has suffered significant blows. 50 IT executives were placed on administrative leave in late March, and the IRS's chief information officer stepped down in April. So, where does this, where does Billy Long step in?
I don't know. They're asking about this IRS free file thing, which is a way that you could, I guess you can do your taxes online using these IRS provided tools, free file, which is a direct competitor to some private enterprises who offer you online tax preparation. They're trying to get rid of that as well. Why don't we just get rid of filing in its entirety? not just the IRS version thereof, but all of it, and replace it with a fair tax. Pay your taxes at the cash register when you buy things. That makes sense. None of this does.
The direct file office in the Internal Revenue Service is responsible for that direct file feature. It's going to begin with the year that we're in now. So next filing season that we start in January of 2026 is when taxpayers can begin to use for the federal tax return for free directly with the Internal Revenue Service. And I just, yeah, I don't know. I have a hard time giving the Internal Revenue Service any information, much less being in their database, filling stuff out. I think there's a steps over the line as far as what they should be doing. But here comes Long, who is kind of heading in that direction. That's not a bad way to, not a bad place for him to start anyway, looking at ways to make it more efficient.
Well, what scares me is something that this idea actually has been brought up before, and that is when you modernize the IT capability at the IRS and you get all this artificial intelligence working, and they know so much about you. Heck, just let the IRS compile your tax return for you, send it out to you to sign it, and send it back. Now that should scare the pants off of anybody, that the IRS can just decide for you what you owe based on how much they know about you, which they shouldn't to begin with, and then you have to spend as much time as you normally would preparing a tax return, verifying what's on the one that they sent you. That is absolute. I hope they don't even think about going in that direction.
According to the article from fedscoop.com, Senator Tom Tillis, one of our senators from North Carolina, said to Long during the confirmation hearing he was going to ask about the direct file program. And the article quotes Tillis, I hope you're okay with us killing that. We should never have had it. There are free filing programs out there. Direct file needs to go away. That's a quote from Senator Tom Tillis from North Carolina.
Well, here's a quote from Bob Paxton of Florida. The entire system needs to go away, not just direct file. And I got a feeling that will be seconded up there in North Carolina.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
All right. Well, I tell you what, our time has gotten away from us really, really bad on this one. If you want to go and Google this FedScoop, FEDSCOOP.com, check that out for yourself. But we are slap out of time. We're going to have to wrap up this edition of Fair Tax Power Radio. Thank you very much for watching, listening, and especially sharing these videos. And we will see you back again, same time, same station next time for the next edition of Fair Tax Power Radio. Until then, I'm Bob Paxton.
Bob Scarborough.
We are the FAIRtax Guys, reminding you the fair tax is the only truly fair tax, and once you understand it,
you demand it.
So what would you do for her?
Well, we've got several programs that will help her. We just need to find out how much she makes. But the good news is, the less she does, the more we can help.
Yeah.
If I may, with the fair tax, we wouldn't even tax her income. So the more she makes, the more she has.
But still, a consumption tax could eat up a lot of her income.
Which is why at the beginning of every month, we're actually going to give back all that she pays in taxes on basic necessities.
You're going to give her back her taxes?
Every month, on everything taxed on basic necessities. But we're also going to give it back to you and to every American citizen.
Why?
Well, we believe taxes should be fair.